Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and today we are delighted to bring to you, as we do on the first Monday of every month at 12 o'clock p.m., the Joe Newby Hour. Joe Newby, author of the book Banned, How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad, and the editor-in-chief of conservativefiringline.com. Joe Newby, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good to see you again, Eric.
Good to see you, my friend. We missed you last month because of issues. What was going on that we missed last month?
Oh my gosh, we had I think it was Labor Day. Everything was just messed up.
There you go. That was what it was. It was the holiday, and it was just a difficult time for us because we were out of studio. We were closed on that day, so we had to put you off to today. Listen, okay. Las Vegas, this mass shooting, at least 50 dead, 400 hospitalized. Joe, I'm starting to see with Orlando, it's getting crazy.
Well, it's been crazy. It's actually getting crazier. And, you know, coming home from work this morning, I heard there were 58 dead and over 500 wounded, 500 injured. And, you know, these things, they're so sad. You can't predict them. You can't guard against them. Stuff like this happens. What I heard this morning is that, on my way home, is that ISIS has taken credit for this. They're claiming that this, 62 years old? The 62-year-old man somehow became a convert to Islam and decided to do this. According to them, they're saying that he was inspired by their call for lone wolf attacks in Las Vegas. Naturally, the last I heard, and you know these things change from minute to minute, but the last I've heard is that at this point, there's nothing to tie this guy to any what they call foreign extremist elements, which is, you know, law enforcement jargon for terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and so forth. But we don't know really what triggered this guy. We don't know what set him off, what prompted him to do this. His brother, from what I understand, was just totally shocked. He said, you know, this isn't, you know, who this guy is. But here he was, from what I understand, with an automatic weapon, firing from, the 32nd floor or 34th floor of the Mandalay Bay.
58 dead at latest report.
Right. And already the Democrats, including Hillary Clinton, are out there blaming the NRA, calling for gun control. I mean, the smoke hasn't even cleared yet, and they're already out there politicizing it. I mean, it's insane.
The whole idea that in America all of our freedoms are being called into question. Our freedom of speech, our freedom of our right to carry, protect ourselves, Second Amendment rights, First Amendment rights, this move underfoot to violently impose your will on mine through protests. I wrote an editorial, Joe, that was picked up by WND.
Okay.
And in there I said, as a Jew, I represent the most maligned group in the history of mankind. The most persecuted, the most murdered, the most discriminated against, enslaved, lost our homes, taken captive, persecuted, even by Christianity. And yet I have never used the word Gentile privilege. And if anybody was entitled to use the word Gentile privilege, it would be a Jew. We've been persecuted by Gentile privilege for 4,000 years. But it's unheard of in our vocabulary to quote Gentile privilege. Instead of protesting, we worked. Instead of fighting, we studied. Instead of throwing bottles and tear gas and picking on police. We became doctors, lawyers, inventors, television talk show hosts, comedians, whatever it was that we could do to make a living and become good citizens of whatever country we lived in, not leading the revolt, not leading the rebellion. But Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Antifa, or whatever they call themselves today, these liberal views of on college campuses of stifling any conservative speak. It's just gotten completely out of hand to a society that's become entitled. Now, I'm sure, as in the past, somebody from the liberal, left-wing legal community will stand up and want to put some kind of spin on this man, and it's just preposterous. At the same time, O.J. Simpson is released. This is going on. So same city, same area.
Same area.
You know, and nobody seems to know the motivation for this killing. What happens to people? Somebody just doesn't wake up and say, I'm going to plan this.
Well, when you look at the amount of firepower that this guy supposedly had, and you know, going back in history, Eric, I mean, everybody alive today can point back to some point in history and say, you know, my ancestors were persecuted by X or Y bunch. You're absolutely correct in your assessment. Others, for example, those with Native American blood running through their veins, and that includes, you know, a good portion of the American population that's been here for more than, you know, 100, 150 years, can claim, you know, some amount of Native American blood. Well, good grief, look what happened, you know, on the Trail of Tears. You know, there was persecution there. I mean, we can all go back and say at one point or another, my ancestors were, you know, persecuted by X, Y, or Z bunch. The thing is, and I'm not diminishing what you're saying. What you're saying, Eric, is 100% true. But what I'm saying is that, you know, we have to live in the here and now, and not in, you know, what happened, you know, 200 years ago, 400, 500, 600 years ago. We have to live in the here and now. We have to deal with what's in front of us and what we're facing right now. Good grief. What's happening now is you have a bunch of people who have essentially forgotten that we fought a war. 600,000 people died, you know, on both sides. And this war that ended slavery, that ended the kind of thing. And you've got people now, kids nowadays, who honestly think, because of, you know, their teachers, honestly think that slavery is still a thing in this country. Well, it's not, and it hasn't been for 150 years. What was it? I saw a thing on Newsbusters this morning where there was an article in the Washington Post where they went to third graders, for crying out loud, to try to bash Trump. Some of those third graders actually told the Washington Post, hey, if I were president, I would make slavery illegal. Now, where do third graders come up with this, Eric? They don't come up with it on their own. Just the other day, there was you know, I did a post about a couple of 10-year-old students in Georgia who were bullied and harassed and called KKK and Nazis. Get this, because they dared to stand and put their hand over their heart during the Pledge of Allegiance, which, you know, is a proper thing to do. And for that, they were called Nazis and KKK. Again, where does this stuff come from? Well, it doesn't come, you know, it doesn't come from within the kids. They had to be taught this. And it turns out that they had a teacher who took a poll before this Pledge of Allegiance event, and she supposedly told the kids that she wouldn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance either. So all of this is going. You have indoctrination in our schools. We have indoctrination from the media. You've got networks like CNN, which came out, I think, back last month or a month before, and said everybody who voted for Trump, by default is a white supremacist. That's where all this stuff comes from. It's indoctrination by the media, indoctrination from within our schools, and parents, they're just trying to keep up with what's going on, and a lot of this stuff doesn't come out until we have something like this happen, or news reports will come out, and then parents find out. They get a letter from a teacher in school or something in the newspaper. My gosh, Eric, this stuff is getting crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier.
What about, who was it, a professor at Penn State? My alma mater stated that, and do you have the quote, Joe, about
I know the quote
expecting
about,
people to work is racist?
White supremacy white supremacist, I think was the quote. I ran across that last night, and it boggles the mind. It really does. Well, I think it's Penn State. They have a religion professor there, and her name escapes me right off. But she came out here some time back and said something, calling Jesus Christ white supremacist, or something of this effect. I mean, it's insanity, and these people are in positions of authority where they're teaching our future generations.
No
and
question.
That's where this indoctrination comes from. It's mind-boggling. It really is.
Good. I didn't. We're here in Birmingham. We don't have professional sports. We have college football. Right. People are University of Alabama crazy. Right. Top 1, top 2 ranked team in the nation. Auburn University, top 25 team in the nation. People are very loyal to their red or their orange. So the discussion about the NFL is really a discussion I have with you, Cheryl Chumley. We've talked about it before. She gave some commentary on Fox recently about it. What's your take about this national anthem protest, how they're protesting during the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance, but they say that the timing of it is only coincidental, that they're not really protesting the national anthem or the flag? But
right, and if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's absolute insanity. What they're really protesting is Donald Trump. They don't like Donald Trump, and so this is how this is how they're making their feelings known. Well, they want to say it's not about race. Well, you know what? The NFL is what, 75% black? The players,
right, 70%, yes.
75% of them are black. Look, they have a right to free speech. They have a right to freedom of expression. But having a right doesn't always, make a protest right. There's, how's that proverb go? Or, there's a time and a place, a season for everything. Right.
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes, right. And, the national anthem during a football game, that is not the time to take a knee. If these players want to take a knee, or they want to protest, violence against blacks, why don't they go to Chicago? Why don't they go to Detroit? Why don't they go to Washington, D.C.? Places where there really is a lot of black-on-black crime. Why don't they go to those places and protest there?
Well, I completely agree with you, Joe. I would actually like, and maybe you've got the research to do it, somebody to do a report on the 1,696 NFL players if they actually voted in the presidential election.
Well, I can tell you one who didn't, probably the most important in this discussion, and that's Colin Kaepernick. He has not voted a single time in his life. We know that for a fact.
Right. See, that's appalling. And my message to the NFL players, to Black Lives Matter, If you want to affect change in this nation, run for office. But at a minimum, if you don't want to run for office, vote. If you're not doing the basic blocking and tackling, minimal effort to vote, then your protest is done out of complete and total ignorance because you didn't do your part to affect change in America. And if you want change, let it begin with you, my friend. Why don't you use your millions to set up literacy centers? I have a cousin, very liberal cousin in New Jersey, that when I posted this editorial on Facebook, he wrote back and replied to it and said, here's 10 charities run by NFL players. And so I looked at the 10 charities and said, well, only 40% of the top 10, 4 out of the 10, are by black players, and only 2 of those have anything to do with community advocacy. Right. So that's a ratio of 20% versus the 70% of the racial makeup of the NFL. Therefore, the statistics are woefully skewed to say that they take their wealth, they do not put it back into the communities. They need literacy centers. They need community centers. They need to go back to the communities they came from and reinvest and go teach kids how to read. 75% of the problems of kids in the juvenile system is they cannot read. And this is a problem. Why don't you go on a recruiting effort? Open up a detective agency and use your money to go find the fathers of these children and tell them, get them back home. Get them back into the kids' lives and stop dwelling on this fatherless community that you've now created in a way that says that it's okay for a father to abandon his children and then them get entered into the system and create a system of entitlements because you said just say yo as opposed to just say no. And so it's problematic and it's creating a problem. This is not a racial situation. This transcends. This is to the white inner city community, to the black inner city community, the Latino inner city community. It is race neutral. It is geopolitical or geoeconomic based on patterns. And in my commentary about discrimination, no baby has ever been born with a rejection of the black baby next to them. No white baby has been born and laid in the nursery and moves their head around as a baby and looks and sees a black baby next to him and turns their back to it. Or sees an Asian baby and turns their back to it. Babies don't discriminate. Babies don't have it's a trained, learned behavior.
Exactly. It's a learned behavior. And the thing I think that really frosts a lot of people about this, Eric, is that they go out there and they talk about all the so-called oppression that is supposedly going on. Okay, so you've got multimillionaires who, these people make money hand over fist doing what they do, and they dare go out on this field and take a knee for the national anthem of the country that allowed them, that gave them the right to take that knee, and they, whether they want to admit it or not, they actually are disrespecting the country that has made them wealthy. They're disrespecting the country that has turned them into heroes just by virtue of the fact that they go out and they play the game or play the game well, or they get X number of touchdowns or whatever the case may be. They're actually disrespecting the country that made them what they are. And, but when they when they take the knee during the national anthem, that's exactly what it is. And they can say whatever they want. Colin Kaepernick, when he first started his protest, he made it quite clear that yes, it was about the flag. Yes, it is about the country. And all of these other players, and not just the players, but the people who are joining them. You've got NFL team owners out there. You've got Sheila Jackson Lee on the floor of the U.S. House doing the same thing. And it's working its way down into college and into high school football. One of my contributors did a story here just early this morning. It went up about 2 high school players who decided they were going to protest the national anthem. And guess what happened? They got their jerseys taken and they got kicked off the team right then and there. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I think that's probably what needs to start happening in the NFL.
Well, you know, parents teaching their children. I think the 8-year-olds took a knee. And 8-year-olds don't. This is a parent manipulating a child and creating this environment. But this is the indoctrination strategy that says take the role models in the community, one of the spheres of influence. We have 7 of those mountains of influence that we look at that's going to reach a community. Entertainment, sports and entertainment fall into one of those categories. Media then adds another category to it. So those two combined are 2 out of the 7. They happen to be top influential areas. Outweighing almost the family in many cases, because mom and dad aren't the role models they used to be. Mom and dad aren't the icons of fashion, pop, you know, the music industry, the film industry, the gaming industry. And, you know, our kids are not playing Monopoly. They're not playing the game of life. They're online playing
Facebook games.
Facebook games, and what's that war one?
World of Warcraft or whatever it is.
But there's all kinds of community through Nintendo or Sony PlayStation or Xbox now have an online community, and they're finding their social connections in an online world, which is not real.
That's right. And this has been a problem for some time. I mean, this isn't something that just came along. It's been going on for a very long time. And you're absolutely right. You know, when these kids go online with these games, and you see it, you know, all the time. You know, that's it. They're glued on that screen. You know, they've got these blinders on, and they can't look left or right. All they see is that game that's being played in front of them. But what's numbing about all of this, Eric, is, you know, you've got this indoctrination that's going on in the schools. We see reports of it all the time, just like the one here just recently with these 2 10-year-old kids in Georgia, where you have a teacher telling her class that she would not stand for the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance. When I was that young, I couldn't imagine a teacher saying something like that. You know, my parents would go through the roof if one of my teachers said, you know, he or she wasn't going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem. Now, of course, you know, I'm dating myself too. You know, you and I, you know, we grew up in a totally different generation.
Right.
But what's happening now, Eric, and what concerns me the most is that these kids are growing up, that they're going to be our future leaders. And when I see some of the insanity and some of the nonsense coming out of these high schools, coming out of these colleges, like this University of California Riverside student who went nuts when she saw a Make America Great Again hat.
Right.
And she yanks it off the guy's head. The guy recorded it, and she goes absolutely nuts and demands right then and there that the school ban these hats. And you know, claiming that, well, these hats are inspiring legislation that kills black people. Huh? You know, where does this come from? Well, it comes from, like you said, you know, the media, from the education, from, you know, those, you know, spheres of influence that most of these kids have.
Well, it's just extraordinary. We're talking with Joe Newby during the Joe Newby Hour. He is the proprietor extraordinaire of ConservativeFiringLine.com, a leading opinion editor of a blog which reaches into the conservative world, conservative biblical worldview. happy to add that. And co-author of the book Banned, How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad. And Zuckerberg's in the news quite a bit lately, and I think that the book is timely in understanding how Facebook operates. It is a deep dive into the underpinnings of Facebook and what they allow and what they don't allow. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to talk about Roy Moore, Senator candidate from Alabama. We're going to talk about Hillary Clinton, and we're going to get some updates on what's going on in this Las Vegas shooting. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and this is the Joe Newby Hour. We have this hour every month on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time hour with Joe Newby, author of the book Banned: How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad, and the blog Aspirator, the blogus maven of conservatingfiringline.com. Joe, welcome back to the program.
Good to be here, Eric.
Election here in Alabama. We took on Luther Strange, certainly the swamp candidate. Very tainted background with our fallen Governor Bentley in making this appointment to fill the slot for Jeff Sessions, who's not doing so well in his role. Big expose about how he's not willing to prosecute Clintons and Obama, and that's not going to bode well for him.
No, it's not.
And I'm sure that is on the radar of our soon-to-be elected senator.
That's my hope and prayer.
His Democratic opponent came out on national television, on MSNBC, saying that he supports full-term abortion.
Well, that's pretty much the Democrat Party line. If you recall, after the 2016 election, when what's his name, Perez, became the new DNC head, he made it quite clear that in order to be a Democrat candidate, you have to hold this extreme view on abortion, which basically allows for the killing of the unborn child basically for any reason or no reason at all, right up until the moment of birth. That's how extreme they have become on this issue.
It is horrifying to me that any party would adopt a murder platform. It is just that simple, and I'm not just talking about biblical murder. I'm talking about full-term abortion, and what he's talking about is after the child is born. This is murder. This is the trial of Kermit Gosnell that went on in Philadelphia, where he cut the spinal cords of babies that were full term and was convicted of murder. Yep.
And again, that is not outside the belief system of Planned Parenthood. I remember, here, I'd have to say it's about 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe a little more. I did a post for Examiner.com, which unfortunately isn't around anymore, about a Planned Parenthood lobbyist who actually argued for post-birth abortion. It doesn't get any more extreme than that.
That's murder.
And it is. Well, it's murder even before birth, but this is so extreme. You have to wonder what kind of people are these? What kind of people would even think of supporting something like this? You have to be evil right to the core to support something like this.
When we look at the statistics on abortion, I'm not an expert at this, and I could be wrong, but is there a higher incidence of any particular racial group than other groups of people that avail themselves of abortion?
I have seen contradictory numbers on that, Eric. I remember looking at this some years back, and the numbers could have changed since the last time I've delved into it deeply. But as I recall, the last time I looked, the incidence of abortion back in that time, it was primarily minorities, primarily blacks, had the highest incident, had the highest rate of abortion at that time. Now, again, that was years back. I'm sure the numbers have changed somewhat, but it's very clear from the beginning. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, made it clear that one of her goals was to take this into the black community to essentially wipe out black people, and why more black people aren't upset and ready to pick up pitchforks and torches over this, I don't know.
Well, one of the reports I see, 49% of abortion patients live below the federal poverty level.
Yep.
75% are poor or low income. Abortion patients are disproportionately poor or low income. I don't see anything on race specifically in this one report, but
well, there's another statistic too that I think needs to be pointed out here, Eric. And this, for me, not just is even more egregious than the racial statistic. But as I recall, and this was even back in late '80s, early '90s. When I first started, getting involved in this. Is a study that was done by the Alan Guttmacher Institute, which is Planned Parenthood's research arm.
Right.
And what they found was that the number of abortions being performed on women who profess to be Christians was roughly equal to that being performed by women who profess to either not be Christians or to have no religious affiliation whatsoever.
Right.
And as a Christian, that shocked me. That really did, because what that told me is that our churches, our pastors, are failing to do their job to teach what the Bible says about abortion and about the shedding of innocent blood. I'm sure you're familiar with the passage. I believe it's in Amos, where God, threw down his punishment, threw down his vengeance against one group of people, because specifically it says, and this part I recall very vividly, for the talking about targeting the women with child.
Yes.
So I mean, it was obvious to me from reading that passage that the women weren't the target, the children were. The unborn children were, and this prompted God's wrath. Now, as a Christian, that tells me right there, this is not something God approves of. And, when I see a statistic like that from the Alan Guttmacher Institute, again, that tells me that our pastors are not doing their job in teaching what God's Word has to say about the issue.
Well, you're spot on. As a matter of fact, new statistics show that Christian homes have the same rate of divorce, the same rate of spousal abuse, the same rate of child abuse.
Right.
That we have watered down the gospel so much that this transformational truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ and the Bible is not changing the landscape. It's not making us a people set apart, a royal priesthood, a holy nation that is to become an example. And so what's the value proposition? If I'm going to experience and participate in the same things the world does, and it's sin on both sides of the house, then what is the reason for, if my life's going to be no different, if things aren't going to change, but I would point to 100% of the people that don't believe are going to perish, and if these statistics are right, then 50% at least are living at a higher standard than 100% of the other side. So we have to look at how we, our point of view as we approach the statistical analysis.
Exactly. The other thing too is you got to remember there are a lot of people, and I've run into this, I'm sure you have too, there are a lot of people who profess to be Christians because maybe they go to church once or twice a week, or rather once or twice a year, on Easter, Christmas, or because maybe their parents were Christians. And there's a lot of people out there who think that because they were born in the United States, that automatically makes them Christian. My wife and I used to attend Harvest Christian Fellowship in Riverside, California. And one of the things that Pastor Greg Laurie said there, and I've heard him say it, several times, and I think it's an excellent line, that going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to your garage makes you a car.
That's exactly right.
I think that is so true. It's not where your body is at that moment; it's where your heart is.
This report just came out. A top lawyer for CBS said she's not even sympathetic to victims of the Las Vegas shooting because country music fans often are Republican.
Yeah, and that's right up there. There was another one, and I just saw the headline. I hadn't had a chance to look into it deeply, but there was a person who I believe was identified as a teacher, again, a teacher, who said that, who said that she prayed that the people who were killed in Las Vegas were, and this was quoted in her tweet, which is now deleted, Trump-tards, which is, one of the terms of derision that the left uses for those of us who support the president. And yeah, that's the modern left, Eric. That's the modern day left.
They're finding out that this Las Vegas shooter's father was robbed a string of banks in Arizona, escaped prison in Texas, and
oh my gosh.
He was known as Big Daddy or Old Baldy and was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list from 1969 to 1977.
Wow.
So this is, his father was diagnosed as psychopathic and reportedly had suicidal tendencies, and according to the FBI, it should have been considered armed and dangerous.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Killing of 58 people. There's that, I'm not sure what that illness is caused, where you want to go down in infamy. Serial killers have that desire. Mass murderers have that desire. We're still talking about Charles Manson.
Oh yeah. Well, you have to wonder about anybody who would do something like this. What drives them to do it? What I find interesting is that his girlfriend. There was a picture posted of him and his girlfriend in a bar, I guess, in the Las Vegas area. And then this morning on my way home from work, I heard that they were looking for his girlfriend, but she had somehow gotten out of the country. And so that kind of makes me wonder, what's going on here. There's got to be more to this story, Eric, than what we're learning. It's kind of like what happened earlier this year when Representative Scalise was shot by this Bernie Sanders supporting liberal who went absolutely nuts, and he was found with a hit list in his pocket of 6 members of the Republican Freedom Caucus, House Freedom Caucus.
Right.
So you really have to wonder: is this another case of some guy going nuts, thinking that all these people going to this country music thing, they're all white supremacists, they're all white nationalists, they're Nazis, and they have to be killed? What drove this guy? Why this venue? Why now? How did he get this weapon? Was he acting alone? There's so many questions in my mind, Eric. I have a very difficult time believing that he acted alone and he managed to get all these weapons and all this ammunition into that hotel room on his own.
This new report out by the FBI says that 58 people killed, more than 515 wounded.
That's outrageous.
It says that the FBI says there is no connection with international terror groups despite the Islamic State claiming responsibility. So they've issued a definitive statement that says that there is no connection to terrorism.
Well, either this guy just went, off the rails and just went nuts on his own. But something, I'm telling you, Eric, something inside of me says this guy was driven by, something external. Was it the constant Was it the constant statement that everybody who's white is a Nazi? Was it, just what was it? I have a hard time believing that he just, flew off the handle and decided to go into a hotel room with a whole bunch of guns and a whole bunch of ammunition and start shooting people.
Well, to injure
doesn't add up.
Yeah, to injure 515, kill 58, you're talking about 573 rounds
minimum.
Okay, so he had thousands of rounds of ammunition. They said he had two guns set up. He was going back and forth between the two, firing down on this. And this it didn't take long for all this to unfold.
No. So how did he get all this ammunition and all these weapons into that hotel? Come on, Eric. I mean, I served in the military. I know, okay? Just to carry one weapon with a few hundred rounds of ammunition, that's pretty obvious, okay? But he had two, and he had hundreds, if not thousands, of rounds of ammunition. Something doesn't pass the smell test.
They said 10 guns.
10 weapons. 10 weapons. And, hundreds, if not thousands, of rounds of ammunition. Something doesn't pass the smell test here, Eric. It really doesn't.
These hotels, the Mandalay is a casino resort, Las Vegas, big hotel. Sure. They've got to have cameras, security. You start hauling in guns and ammo. Now, was there a gun show in town? Was this something that they were expecting people to be toting guns and ammo in? Did really nobody on the hotel security, why did it take the Las Vegas Police Department to have to come? Where was the hotel security? They're armed in casinos. Why didn't they go up to the room and open the door and take this guy out? This amount of time. It's just so many questions about what you can bring into a hotel that's attached to a casino is just stunning. And listen, I don't live in fear.
Who paid for the room? Who paid for the room?
Exactly.
Okay. Who paid for those rooms aren't cheap.
No.
Okay. Those rooms aren't cheap. I don't know that this guy could have afforded one of those rooms. How did he get this room? Who paid for it? Did his girlfriend pay for it? There again, Eric, there are so many questions. I don't think we're going to know the answers to a lot of these questions for quite some time to come, if ever. I mean, I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, there has got to be a whole lot more to this than what we're being told.
And then we get involved in the legal liabilities of the Mandalay Hotel and their parent organization as to what they did and what they didn't do, what they knew, what they didn't know, when they knew it, what they acted upon, what they didn't act upon, why was this allowed? Are we going to see metal detectors start popping up at places that support convention centers or venues such as this?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I've never been to some place like this, but correct me if I'm wrong. But don't places like this already have some kind of metal detector and some kind of security? I mean, surely they don't want patrons going into their casinos carrying weapons.
Yeah,
right?
I don't gamble. We have casinos here at the Indian reservations in Alabama, but I've never been to one.
Yeah.
The only time I went to Las Vegas was when I moved from California back to the South in 1990, 27 years ago, and I stopped along the way from Los Angeles, went across that way, stopped overnight with the motorhomes. So went to an RV park there, but would not hold myself out as even knowledgeable to one fraction of it. All right, let's talk about Hillary Clinton.
Sense to me. Sure.
One of our favorite subjects.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton, Huma Abedin, Andrew the Wiener, all of these things. Everybody is aware of James Comey's testimony that things were mishandled. Why has there been no prosecution on state secrets, national security compromise, pay for play, everything completely and totally documented? And they're looking at Jared Kushner writing his father-in-law an email from a private server. And this is, oh my goodness, this is, whoa, he didn't disclose that. And Hillary Clinton has tens of thousands of emails. This double standard is getting to be so stupid.
It is, and this is the thing, Eric. With Hillary Clinton, well, not just Hillary, but with anybody with the last name of Clinton, there is always a double standard. If anybody ever did 1/10 of what Hillary Clinton has done, they would be behind bars probably for a good portion of the rest of their lives. I pointed out during the campaign, I call her the most evil, and I still do. I call her the most evil person ever nominated to the White House by a major party, and I believe that with all my heart. I mean, the only way the Democrats could have picked somebody more evil is if they actually went down to hell itself and pulled Satan or one of his minions to run on the ticket. Yeah, who knows? Maybe that's what they'll do in 2020. I don't know. But when I look at Hillary Clinton, I see someone who has more baggage than a freight train can carry. Okay, she has got a 40-plus year career of lies, of scheming, and doing whatever she can do to scratch and claw her way to the top. To the left, Hillary Clinton isn't just a candidate. Like for us, Mitt Romney was a candidate. Well, he lost, and nice to have known you. Hope everything works out for you in the future. But not so much with Hillary Clinton. With Hillary and Bill, they're not just top Democrats. They're not just former office holders, former presidents, former candidates. No, they are held up by the Democrat Party and by their allies, which the media makes up most of the media, as something almost otherworldly. It's just like Barack Obama when he was running. The way MSNBC treated him, oh, he's like a god. And they actually said this on some of these programs. He's like, well, God. They treat Bill and Hillary in pretty much the same way. They've deified Bill and Hillary Clinton. And once you deify somebody, well, they can do no wrong. And so that's part of what's going on here, I think. That's just part. The other part is, and I have heard so many people, I've listened to Larry Nichols, for example. I've listened to others. I've lived in Arkansas myself. I know how it goes. The Clintons are considered to be top hog at the trough, and you know what I mean, being there in the South. And they are essentially untouchable. The Clintons are. You don't cross the Clintons without paying a price. And there's a lot of people in Arkansas that can attest to that. Larry Nichols can certainly attest to that. Several others can attest to that. And I think that's a big part of it. You have part of it is that the left loves the Clintons. They worship the Clintons. And the other part of it is they know better than to cross the Clintons.
This reminds me of the Gambinos, of the Lucases, of the crime families and the crime bosses of a day gone by, where they're RICO offenders under the RICO Act. They are crime lords, and
if you Google Larry Nichols, look at some of his videos online where I have watched him and listened to him talking with Alex Jones about some of the goings-on, some of the things that he admits that even he himself was involved in. And look at some of the things that he has said in the past, and look at some of the things that he's admitted to have done for the Clintons. I mean, just unbelievable things.
It is. Joe, we could talk for days about this. We always run out of time on the Joe Newby Hour. We just have so much fun. It's always great to connect with a kindred spirit, somebody across the country from me that shares the same worldviews that I do. We always have something stunning to talk about. And we encourage you to get the book Banned, How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad, and to sign up for the conservativefiringline.com. You'll get headlines, you'll get storylines, you'll get a conservative view of what's happening across America. Authentic, real, unabashed truth coming from our good friends at conservativefiringline.com. Joe Newby, thank you so much. We'll see you right back here next month, same time, first Monday of the month, 12 o'clock p.m., right here on Revealing the Truth for the Joe Newby Hour. Joe, thanks so much for being with us. That brings to an end our live broadcast day, but don't go away because our broadcasts are repeated all throughout the day until tomorrow, when you'll find them on our YouTube channel and on WNDTV.com. You can always follow Revealing the Truth at both places and get the most up-to-date interviews on headlines, heartlines, and biblical truth. You can get all of my teachings, 11 years worth of teachings in our teaching archives, right there on the home page at www.ignitinganation.com. You'll find it right there, $5 a month. You get access to all my audio teachings, all my video teachings, and a wealth of information you can't get anywhere else. Until we see you right back here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock Central Time for the next edition of Revealing the Truth, we bid you shalom.